In the 1760s, Andrew Jackson's parents traded desperate poverty in Ireland for an equally hard life on the Carolina frontier. Andrew never met his father, for he died when his wife was pregnant with Andrew, leaving the boy and his two older brothers to fend for themselves. When the Revolutionary War began in 1775, the Carolina frontier became a dangerous place, with one farmer siding with the Patriots and his next-door neighbor with the British.
It was a brawling, violent way to grow up. You made a living with your hands and with your spirit, your military spirit to defend yourself, and your hands to pull something out of the soil. So you had a constant wariness and a constant threat of violence. And I think that's one of the many reasons Jackson became a man who was so prone to violence. He grew up with it. He didn't know anything else.
During the Revolution, the fighting in the Carolinas was the most vicious of the entire war. Both sides executed men they captured and committed atrocities against civilians. Outnumbered and desperate, the Patriots relied on young boys who knew every twist and turn in the woods to carry orders through the battle lines. One of them was Andrew Jackson.
There's a famous story about young Andrew, 13 years old, being commanded by the British officer who captured him to clean his boots, and Jackson refused to take such a servile job, and the officer slashed him across the face with a sword, and Jackson put his arm up to defend himself, and he carried the scars all his life.
The war inflicted other, even more horrible scars on Jackson, for one of his brothers died of heat stroke while in battle, and his mother and other brother died of disease. In the boy's eyes, it was the British who were to blame for leaving him suddenly alone in the world.
For Andrew Jackson, the American Revolution was a formative psychic as well as political event. For the rest of his life, he would despise the British Empire. He would grow up feeling as if he owed the British a kind of repayment for all that the British had done to him personally and to his family.
Andrew Jackson, with that kind of a background, you would expect him to be a very angry and frustrated young man, and he was. And he made quite a reputation for himself as a man who is getting into trouble, causing all kinds of problems.
A fellow resident of the town of Salisbury described the young troublemaker this way.
Andrew Jackson was the most roaring, rollicking, horse-racing, card-playing, mischievous fellow that ever lived in Salisbury.
He got a small inheritance from a grandfather back in Ireland, and he went down to Charleston to collect it, and spent the whole thing in a week on horses and liquor and maybe some girls too. But it was all gone pretty fast, and he had to trudge back to the upcountry of South Carolina to somehow pull his life together again. There are a lot of 15-year-olds who would not have made it, and it wouldn't have surprised anybody if Andrew Jackson just went down the tubes and was forgotten at that point.